Welcome to the Beyond Sport panel. I'm going to introduce our distinguished panel. Just here on my left, Andy Anson, who is CEO of England's 2018 World Cup bid. Remarkable business history, actually, because if you talk about someone that's worked with some of the greatest brands in the world, Walt Disney, Manchester United, he's worked on the ATP Tennis Tour, and never mind that, he's developed a groundbreaking TV channel. He's now in charge, as I say, to bring the World Cup to this utterly obsessed football nation. So if you want to know about pressure, it's sitting there on his shoulders at the moment. We have Tanni Grey Thompson, Dame Tanni Grey Thompson, the most decorated Paralympian in history. You saw her in action up there. Yeah. I haven't finished yet. 1 minute. Save your applause. There's a couple of great bits coming along. She's 5 Paralympic Games, winning 11 gold medals. She's won the London Wheelchair Marathon 6 times. She's acknowledged as one of the most gifted and courageous sportswomen of her generation. But I say more excitingly, over 20 years, she's broken down barriers, changed perceptions, inspired and educated a whole population. She has changed our view of wheelchair users, she's changed our view of the Paralympics, and she's changed how we function as a country around disability. And sorry, you got one more to go. Last week, she was Dame Tanni Grey Thompson, but on Friday, she was asked to sit in the House of Lords and will be referred to as Baroness Tanni Grey Thompson.
Can I go now?
And this is William from UEFA, and William also has a very distinguished career, but more in public policy. And as Director of Communications, he's a senior advisor to Michel Platini, and he also heads up UEFA's charity portfolio. He focuses on political issues, external communications, and he is an active partner on Kick Racism Out and Unite Against Racism. And talking to him earlier, he's very, very ingrained in how UEFA uses sport for social good. Thank you, William. Now, one of the greatest footballers on the planet at the moment, Clarence Seedorf. He's won the Champions League 4 times with 3 different clubs. He's played for the Netherlands 87 times. He is one of the most entertaining footballers on the planet at the moment. And he has set up a non-profit foundation called Champions for Children, which is created to support children and young people in developing countries around the world. He's joined a very esteemed group of people, Bill Clinton and David Rockefeller, only 5, to become a legacy champion for Nelson Mandela's foundation, ensuring that Nelson Mandela's legacy lives on in the true spirit of the great man. Clarence. So, an amazing panel, a great opportunity. Will come to you guys later to ask some questions, but I'm going to ask Clarence to just give us a bit of a frame about his work within sport and development. Clarence.
Well, I wrote some stuff here, but actually I'm not going to use it. It took me 2 hours to get it done, but I feel that I have to talk from my heart because I feel very much like you. I'm just 34 years old. And I think the maximum difference we will have is about 9 years. So I most probably would be next to you more than sitting here. And I feel that you are my counselors, actually. I've been very much inspired by you guys over the last 2 days. I have been chatting with some of you, and it gives me more energy and more power to take forward to what I've just started. I would like to use a phrase that Nelson Mandela used talking about education and saying that education is the most powerful tool that we can use to change the world. And after listening to you today, we know how true that is. And I can tell you that for myself, I've been traveling over the world, playing my football, enjoying my football, but with a very clear focus in my head. Because I know that for sporting celebrities, it is so important to understand our position today in society, and that we have a big responsibility towards who is watching us. I know also that most of us are not really aware of our position, are not really aware of what we communicate to who's looking at us, especially the kids around the world. And I think the social responsibility within clubs, sporting clubs, federations, but especially the individuals, because we as an individual can make a choice to be a good role model and to make sure that when we are on the field doing our sports and off the field that we behave in a certain way because people look at us. And because of the fact I am aware, and I was quite young when I became aware, and I feel that as a burden, but as a privilege. I was around 7 years actually when I knew what I had to do, what I wanted to do growing up, older. I saw the images of the famine in Ethiopia, and it really struck me. And from that day on, I said to myself, when I have the means to, and I have the possibility, and I will be a grown man, I want to make sure I can make this world a better place so we don't have to see those images again on television. Well, I grew up, I started playing my football, I started kicking some goals, winning some cups, and I can tell you the satisfaction was never as much as when I went back to my home country with the Champions Trophy and saw the whole country just enjoying that moment, to be able to live a sporting moment together with me. Because normally they wouldn't have had the possibility to see the cup, because it would go back to Italy, in Milan, where the Italians would be able to come to the city and to get that glimpse of the cup and to see that happiness on the faces of the people that gave me so much more than winning that cup by itself. I went to Djibouti and did the same thing. There was an opening in a new stadium, 13,000 people, the president hand in hand with me with the cup, showing it to the people. It is more than sport, because it gives people hope. It gave them the possibility to live that emotion that others have every day, every year, anytime they really want. And that's what it's about. It is more than football, it's more than sport, it's more than everything that we have talked about. I've heard you talk about spirituality, because this is so fantastic to see how many of you have the same vision, the same mission of a better future for us all. And I started also because of that, thinking about how I could really make a difference, but a concrete difference. And that's why I created Champions for Children, my foundation. I have talked with some of you also about collaborating already, because some interesting work has been done already. And I founded the foundation with a focus to educate kids through sports. As we said before, sports is a very powerful tool, especially used in the right way. And over the last 2 years with the university in Milan, we created an educational model, doing worldwide research on existing foundations, associations who are using sport to educate in the world. They came back with the information, and actually we have now a very unique model in hand. And we're going to implement this educational model in the first project that's going to be in South Africa as a tribute to Nelson Mandela. The first one, the FIFA World Cup, is going to be held there for the first time in the continent. And we're going to implement this educational model on this playground that is an indoor and outdoor facility. And my goal and my aim is to place as many as those all over the world, using a specific system. And that system would be creating a laboratory. I'm talking with Microsoft to create a laboratory to be able to interconnect all the playgrounds that I'm going to place worldwide with my foundation. And I'm throwing it back at you, the ones who would be interested eventually to help me to make this difference, because I need local assistance, I need local partners to make this difference. I would love to, have chats with you and talk about it. I think together, we need to work together, we can make that difference. I will be able to use this model anywhere in the world. We're using this model also with the Western Cape University in Western Cape. And they are actually adapting the model to the local needs. That's the most important thing, because we're not saying from a distance how they have to do things. We're bringing a basic model that's going to be adapted. And again, this is going to make a huge difference. In the first playground, it was placed already. That's where the idea came from, in Holland. And Holland is known as a quite civil country. But still, crime is also there. And after 3 months, after the opening of the playground, 30% of the crime was reduced in Holland. So I said, if we go to other places where crime is much more violent, where the kids have less opportunities than in Holland, what kind of impact could we make if we were there with the playground system, with the model, an educational model in place? So that's what I did. That's what I'm doing. My aim is to place as many of those around the world, making sure I can interconnect them, create cultural integration through internet, because that's how we can definitely define it. And I'm going to work hard to make that happen. I just want to tell you guys that I'm very proud that I'm here. I'm really proud to see how many of you share these values. It makes me a stronger man today. It's going to make you a stronger person tomorrow, and you are going to make the difference tomorrow for sure. But you need to be committed to the cause. There will be a lot of difficult moments for each of us. I've been through them on a personal level. I'm not going to tire you with all those stories, because everybody has a single story. But it's about what we want to do and how we're going to do it, and not about talking, it's about doing. And that's what I'm going to try to do. And I thank you very much for your patience and attention. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Clarence. A privilege to hear that story. And just, I'm going to start with you, Clarence, first. At what point in your life did you decide that actually I can use my personality, my celebrity, I can use sport to make a difference? And also the other thing is, why did you feel so compelled? Was there a particular moment that it came to you?
Yeah, well, as I said, I was 7 years old when I watched television and I saw those images, and it was like a moment, a clear moment that this was my calling. And I think many of you have felt somewhere in your lives the same moment, same type of emotion. And then I grew up and I started to kick a ball, and I saw that I had some talent with it. And my parents, were totally supportive in this and made sure that I could develop my talent. They gave me a voice when I was younger, because they listened to me. They were there for me in the difficult moments in my youth. And I know now how lucky I was to have that support, and I know also how many kids don't have that situation, and that's why we all have to do something more to give those who don't have that support to be able to develop their talents. And I want to use my talent as a platform to be able to give back. Yeah.
And just to pick up on something, you talk about support and how sport can certainly play a role among young men, where certainly in the developing world countries, a lot of crime is, I think 80% of crime within Europe is focused around young men, and 80% of that 80% have a father missing. And you talk about support, but the important point here is that sport can really play a role in bringing in socially excluded young men who don't have kind of the support level that you had there. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So Tanni, when did it come to you? When did that flash of inspiration come?
I grew up in a family where my parents were hugely passionate about sport. I'm Welsh, and I remember being 3 years old and my mother making me sit on the sofa watching Wales play rugby wearing a bobble hat and a scarf. So it was
That
always...
was in the summer. Was that in the summer?
It was kind of that sort of slight obsessiveness, and watching your team want to win and sort of the ups and downs. But for me, it happened at different points. I'm 40, and life sort of 35 years ago was very different for disabled people in Britain. So my parents encouraged me to do sport and to be physically active because it was actually about me having a better quality of life, and it was about me being independent. And lots of people told my family that I would never achieve anything in my life. And I remember my father sitting me down at 7 and saying, the world's an amazing place, you need to travel, you need to explore, you need to be educated, you need to be fit, you need to be healthy. And that had a massive impact on my life. And I remember saying to my dad a little while ago, do you remember that conversation we had? And he was like, no, not really. I was like, but. And he said, oh, well, actually, we just didn't really want you living at home forever. And it was like, oh. But for me, it was gradual, because I started playing lots of different sports. From the age of 14, I did just athletics. And really from that age, everything I did was based around me being an athlete. But actually, being a successful athlete then gives you the ability to have a voice, and people listen. And through winning and doing it very ethically, you can actually start trying to change people's ideas. So, I didn't set out to try and change the view of disability sport, but actually, saying, no, I want to be treated like an athlete. This is what we should do to integrate disabled people. This is what we should do to integrate women into sport. You start to be able to have an influence.
And gentlemen, not all sports celebrities, personalities carry the values, ethics and morals and the drive to use sport as the precious commodity it is. Young people look up to sports stars now. William, do you not despair at the on and off pitch antics of our sports stars and the way they bring sport into disrepute?
Well, do I despair at the kind of role models that politicians or artists or performers can be? I think there is always exceptions. Altogether, I deal with sports people who are tremendously socially committed, who do a lot, for example, to help people with...
Sorry, I think we lost sound.
Is it better?
I think it's better now, yeah.
With people with disabilities, for example, who commit themselves to integration, to respect.
Do you want to try the hand mic? Just,
Yeah. Is that all right?
Yeah. Perfect.
People who respect diversity, who are involved in fighting discriminations. I mean, human beings are not perfect. I don't think role models have to be perfect. I mean, if they are perfect, they're not good role models, because we all have our weaknesses. We all have our flaws. And sports people have them too. But on the whole, as a community, they do a tremendous amount. I see, for example, in my own country, at the grassroots, because UEFA is much more involved at the grassroots than it is at the top of the sport. The top of the sport doesn't need that much help. But most of our resources are committed to grassroots youth football. Many of the kids in the football clubs are the sons and daughters of what would be called illegal immigrants. Their first contact with the society they're going to try to integrate in, under much difficulty most of the time, is the football club, before the school or anything else. It's in the football club that they are treated as equals.
And is that because on that initial touch point where the world is so strange, they're coming into a totally new environment, it's the one bit of connective tissue that binds us together?
Exactly. That's what they know. And our clubs are open-minded. They don't ask too many questions. They know there's a child who needs help. There's a child who needs friends. There's a child who needs an education. And it starts on the pitch.
Andy, listen, I was going to claim that I used Facebook and Twitter, but I know you'd all see through it. So I got someone in my office to do it for me. But we posed a question on Facebook. Does sport heal or hurt? And we got a fantastic reply back from Rosenthal Aishu's in the audience. Hello, thank you for your response. But one of the things he said was he was watching Archbishop Tutu being interviewed on Sky TV. And here is a man that's been through Truth and Reconciliation, that fought a struggle of apartheid. And the Sky reporter asked him, what did he think about John Terry being removed from the English captaincy? John Terry's the England captain. Is it the media that is just reporting too much negative stuff so that the positive messages that we all know are out there, that we constantly see, and probably you guys constantly see, is that what's happening?
No, I think in an interesting way that's indicative of the fact that as a nation we are obsessed with football and our footballers. And so anything that happens is news, and the role of the England football captain, because football is so important in our society, is magnified and scrutinised in a way that it wouldn't otherwise be. But I think I'd come back to William's point. We can focus on those negative things, but what I've seen in my time at Manchester United, working with the England players, working with other clubs in this country, working with tennis players on the ATP Tour, is there's an awful lot of sportsmen and women who are willing to do an awful lot to help society. So I think focusing on negative things that may be in the news today is not right for this forum. I think what we should be focusing on is how, because of the importance of football and other sports around the world, how you can use those sports to affect social change in a really impactful way. And I've seen it happening. I've seen it happening with Manchester United players. I've seen the programs that the FA have carried out around the world in terms of educational programs in parts of Africa, teaching people about AIDS and HIV awareness, and using sportsmen and women to help get those educational messages across is really important. So let's focus on the great things that the sportsmen and women are doing and how it can impact the world in a positive way.
Absolutely. And if we now fast forward to South Africa, the sense of the moment, the Summer World Cup, this feels more than a sporting occasion. This feels like a sense of a nation. The FIFA World Cup will be used as a way of developing communities, developing their society. The England bid doesn't quite have that story, that narrative. How are we going to ensure that our our bid for the World Cup is not just about football and fans, etc., etc.?
Well, we're lucky in this country because we have all the things you need to host a great World Cup. We could do it tomorrow. We've got a great stadia, great transport systems, accommodation. We know it would be a commercially successful World Cup in England. So what we are able to do is focus on the rest of the world. And if you think of a World Cup here, there'll be billions of people paying attention to it. And that is an amazing thing to have at your disposal in a way that you can then use that power of having a World Cup to give something back. So the legacy plans that we're trying to build into our World Cup bid really involve using football for social change around the world in some of the poorest parts of the world and creating something very impactful on the back of a World Cup in England. So I think it's incumbent on us, because we do have everything in place, to look beyond our shores and actually give something positive back. And actually FIFA already do an awful lot of work. I think we're seeing with the Football for Hope work they're doing around the world, where they're educating kids and using football to help educate kids. They can do very impactful things. And I think what we're trying to do with our bid is take what FIFA are doing and what we're already doing within England to a much, much bigger level. And I think Dame Tanni would understand what's going on with the 2012 Olympics in London in terms of the International Inspirations Programme, which is already a very meaningful programme around the world.
Well, so it's not just going to be one big hangover?
No, that'll be one nice part of it, but hopefully it'll be 8 years of meaningful legacy work around the world as well.
So I just thank you for bringing out International Inspiration, which International Inspiration is the legacy of the London 2012 bid, which was the promise made by Seb Coe that we would inspire 12 million young people around the world, and it's a partnership between the British Council, UK Sport and UNICEF. And Tanni's an ambassador there. Tanni, you've been traveling around the world a little bit, seeing some of the work on the ground. So we're just going to move from sort of the bigger picture of big bids and big organisations to more what you've seen on the ground. What's been your experience?
I mean, I think everyone knows about the power of sport because, you know, it affected my life. Lots of friends who were in sport, it's affected their lives in a very positive way. But one of the things that's come out of International Inspiration is getting things moving on the ground, because we all know the issues, but we have to find solutions. We have to do something. And I've been very fortunate. The last project I visited was in Jordan, And it's bringing together expertise from around the world, but in local communities. And actually, I think what was really powerful with going into Jordan was how much we can learn from each other, because they're doing some amazing work there in terms of integrating disabled people into school and into education that we in the UK could learn a lot from. And I think that's amazing. But it's actually training young people to deliver sport in the environment that they know. And I think the most powerful thing I saw, I met a huge group of young girls who are bright, articulate, all speak 4 or 5 languages, and through the confidence that they've had from doing physical activity, they want to change the world. And I think the difference is, the group of young girls I met were saying, well, our mum, our mothers weren't allowed to do sport because of culture. Our teachers don't know about sport because they weren't allowed to. But this is what we want to do. And I think that's the powerful thing when you get groups of young people together. They're able to achieve so much. But it's got to be done on a local level. It's got to be the sport that's right for them in the right community. Absolutely. It shouldn't be us floating in telling them what to do. And it's also what we can learn to bring back, and there's a lot that we need to change in the UK. And
just reflecting, Lord Putman, the chairman of UNICEF at Beyond Sport last year, isolated that educating women is the core to rejuvenating the developing world. He said 95% of the world's problems are caused by men.
Yeah.
Which, I'm noticing none of the men clapping there. Boo, boo. And he also said that the greatest way to engage young women is purely by participating in sport itself, is that message of social inclusion. And Clarence, you've been talking about education a huge amount, and you're off to South Africa with the BBC talking about the impact rather than football. What's your perspective on how we can bring in education? We've seen FIFA do a large one goal campaign. What are your views? It might be just the only Millennium Development Goal we actually reach at the moment.
Yeah, my view is that we can do so much more. And my view is that there has been a lot of talking about how much as they want to do. And even if I talk about the FIFA, even if I talk about the UEFA, and I'm talking about a world I'm very part of and that I love, but I think and I know that we have to do more. We can do more. We have to implement more projects. We cannot go to South Africa and play the World Cup and have this boost of energy all over the country and all over the continent and not have a planning of legacy programs that will leave something behind for the people. And this is something that we have to start talking about today, creating awareness about it, because the intention is there, but we have to make sure that we put this intention into practice.
So just a quick question out here. I'm going to do a show of hands. How many of you have ever considered sport as a catalyst for change within your communities? How many of you, that's a good show of hands. Right, let's finish. We can go home now. That's interesting. So is anyone involved in a sports project at the moment? Do you want to just go to the mic? Do you mind? Unless you're really shy and don't want to. But you're all great leaders. So would you like to grab a mic? Is that all right? Oh, lovely. Here we go. Can you just say your name and what you do and sort of give us an example?
My name is Janice, and I'm one of the International Award for Young People delegates, and I'm from Ireland. It's just to make the point that everyone here probably knows about the troubles that were in Ireland a few years ago. At the height of the troubles, the one thing that was neutral for both North and South was rugby. And we were one of few countries that had technically a dual jurisdiction team. We had Northern Ireland, which was ruled by the UK, mixing with the Republic of Ireland, and yet we were Ireland for the rugby. And we had the one common goal, which was the Six Nations, the Heineken Cup, all the trophies that we could collect, basically. So I suppose one question that I'd like to pose is that we've talked about interfaith dialogue, but I was just wondering if you'd ever consider intersport dialogue as a conflict resolution.
Who would? William, do you want?
Yes, we have. We are actually funding and supporting projects in areas like the Caucasus, the Balkans, former Yugoslavia in particular, where we help non-governmental organizations that try to bring reconciliation in areas that have suffered from much strife in the last 2 or 3 decades. We have, I'll just give one example, a project in Bosnia-Herzegovina, which is called Open Fun Football Schools, which is actually operated by a Danish non-governmental organization. We fund the project. It involves thousands of children from the 3 different communities in Bosnia-Herzegovina who play together, who actually cheer together. And one of the conditions for a club to be included in the project is that the 3 communities have to be represented, not only at the level of the children, but also of the parents. And it's this restoration of dialogue which is important. We had an event which was quite publicized last year. We had Turkey and Armenia playing 2 football games to qualify for the World Cup. It was the first time that Turkey and Armenia in 80 years had any kinds of relations. And thanks to those 2 games, the 2 presidents traveled to each other's country. And a protocol was signed, re-establishing relations after 80 years between 2 neighbors. So it can work.
And just an interesting point about Open Fun Football Schools. Anders, who leads the project, is a fantastic community leader. And I suppose what I'm trying to get across is you're all fantastic community leaders. And I think we're hoping that you see sport as something accessible that you can use to challenge if you are living in a conflict zone. And I think we'll probably all agree that you're better off waiting till there is solutions to any geopolitical problems. The reason why Open Fun Football Schools work so well is because there's a solution, there is a peace accord. And let's not overestimate what sport can do. I think it's very important to see it as a way of building trust, bringing people together and breaking down barriers as part of a number of cultural tools that make connections towards people. Tanni, you wanted to...
Yeah, and I mean, back to the conflict resolution, I was in Rwanda last year and sort of arrived, and it was a beautiful sunny day, and I was taken to this amazing, just very peaceful garden, which was a Holocaust memorial. And the first thing I was told, that this is one of the sites in Kigali where there were mass graves, and there are 250,000 bodies buried in this one mass grave, which is probably the most, I don't know, you can't even find the words to describe the emotions when you're sitting there. But in Rwanda, sport was being used as a massive tool for social change, because the way a lot of young boys had been injured, a lot of young boys had become amputees. And you know, there were a lot of girls who were infected with HIV/AIDS, and so had very different issues to deal with. But sport was used as a way to bring the 2 different sort of communities together. And what was incredibly powerful is people were sitting there playing volleyball and saying, well, actually, we were fighting against each other a couple of years ago, and quite a lot of the guys have been injured in fairly horrific ways. But all that was just not forgotten, because it's quite hard to walk away from that. But it was kind of, sport was a platform to rebuild. And also in somewhere like Rwanda, they were using sport as a tool for social change, because, you know, the budget and the money they have available is so limited that they don't have money to pay for great education and for health services. But sport was a way to challenge issues and ideas relating to disability, because, you know, Britain and many other countries around the world have such a negative view of disability that, you know, it's seen as something embarrassing to the family and as something where you can't contribute. Volleyball was being used as a way to change that. And they're going to have a massive impact, not just at local level, but also in terms of their selection for Paralympic teams and their standing on a world stage.
Now, is there anyone else out there that has... There were a lot of hands that went up there, so just jump at a mic. I think there's a guy in... Yes, just there. Head to a mic and...
Hello, this is Junior Tanaka from Japan, and this is about my friend's project. It's called Grow Project, and they organize a charity futsal game. And then the money participation fee is donated for the project to sweep the landmine field, and then the size of the futsal court will be swept by the donated money. Okay. And then that's has started 2 years ago, and very getting more people right now.
Amazing, amazing stuff. Is there anyone else? Anyone else? The gentleman in the red, just there.
Hey everyone, I'm Hussein from Iraq. As you all know that Iraq went through a difficult war back in 2003. And after that, the government was split and we had no ministries, we had nothing basically. And a year after, our team, our Iraqi national team went to Athens to play in the Olympics. And we just went out of a war and we had like really a weak team. We had no support. Our players just went in to have fun, right? They were meeting their favorite players like Cristiano Ronaldo, right? that was their first game. So we ended up actually being the fourth in that play. So this is like a really good example of that if you have like a war zone, like football or other sports can actually bring peace, right? Another good example is that in 2008, 2007, Iraq was playing football again was it in Vietnam and Malaysia and Indonesia? It was the Asia Cup, and Iraq was going to have a civil war actually at that time between the Shiites and the Sunni, right? And we were very close actually to having a civil war. And our team was basically half Sunni and half Shia and like a couple of Kurds and stuff like that. So the team went in, they won the Asia Cup. And at the end, everyone was so happy. And like this game that we won actually reduced the risk of us having a civil war. And because we actually won, I think this is one of the things that actually helped us not having a civil war.
Thank you. I think we've got one more. Let's see, just the last one there.
Hi, I'm Sarah from Lebanon. And I just want to highlight a project that the NGO in which I work is doing. The project is called Game 3, and it actually tries to engage young men and boys in basketball games, and in order to engage them in issues like gender discrimination or violence against women and children, so basically domestic violence. And I just want to say that sport is just a very great bridge that help us to access people from all ages and all communities.
Thank you. And I think probably that's a very significant point, the sport's success for social change is because it engages with all of us. It taps into our passions, our emotions, and that's why it is, I think, so successful. Now I'm going to, before I ask the panel one more question, and we've got a special presentation to make, I'm just going to ask this question again. Now, I'm not rigging the poll. I'm just asking you to all vote for this. How many people now would consider sport as a platform or catalyst for change? Everyone put their hands up, please. That's unanimous. Well done, everyone. So I'm just going to ask one more question. Well, actually two, if we can, if that's all right. I'm going to look at someone to see if we can do two more questions. So the first one is just a lot of the talk today. Bob Geldof made a speech yesterday that was so compelling about the environment and climate change. And all of you guys here have spoken so passionately. I've got to tell you something. I've got a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old. You are responsible for their lives. I hope you realize that. A lot of responsibility. And you've spoken very passionately about it. And I wanted to just touch on the environment because sport has an appalling track record with the environment. And I think when we've got you guys here organizing big events, and I was talking to you, William, earlier, but can you really shed some light over sport? And the environment is such a potent issue here on how sport and your organization and then the bid is taking, just very briefly, to tackle this issue.
Well, first of all, it was difficult to mobilize people within our sport on the environment. I mean, when we first brought up the issue, we were told, well, what has it got to do with kicking a ball? I mean, this is basically the reaction. And then we actually produced a project, which was fairly simple. We calculated how much we emitted through the transportation that we use for our competitions. That's the part of our sport. We got a figure. We got involved with the Worldwide Fund for Nature, and we told them, okay, this is what we emit. How much does it cost? And they told us the amount. We paid the amount, and with that, the first year, we built a wind park in Turkey. And we're going to be doing this. Every unit of CO2 that we produce is being compensated financially and going towards offsetting the damage that we cause.
And we were talking earlier, and I mentioned that sport is a wonderful, and it's the amount of media that's consumed by sport, that it's a wonderful opportunity to get educational messages out to people on climate change. How many people watch the, your tournaments? How many?
Well, I mean, the final of the Champions League is watched live by about 1 billion people. The Euro, the same. I mean, the Euro, we publicized very heavily the fact that with a stadium ticket, you could travel for 24 hours by public transport all over Switzerland and Austria, which meant that practically nobody came with their private cars.
And I think, I think this is right, that we've agreed that before every game next year, did we agree? I can't remember before, that we were going to get every team on the pitch to sign a climate charter. So it goes around the world that we can communicate the message. And you gave me a guarantee that we could do that before every Champions League game, I think.
Yes, well, I think we're always ready to do something for a good cause.
And how are you tackling this with the bid?
It's clearly critical these days that sustainability is built into your planning right from the bid stage, because obviously major sporting events could have a very negative impact on the environment. So it's incumbent on us to plan it. So for example, on transportation, we're going to make sure in our bid that 100% of people going to a stadium can go on public transport. We're going to make sure we use recyclable water to water the pitches and things like that. There's a whole number of things. In fact, the great things about having the Olympic Games in London in 2012 is there's a new British standard being created for creating sustainable events, and we're going to implement every part of that within our bid book. But the interesting things are that, the biggest issue with creating events is construction of new arenas. So clearly something that we've got in our favour in that regard is that we've got the arenas in place and we wouldn't build them just for a one-off event. I think building white elephants and leaving them there unused is actually a major problem which we should all try and avoid when we're hosting events. But it's got to be at the centre of your planning now from day one of your bid. You can't ignore it. And unfortunately, FIFA and UEFA are very keen that you focus on it from day one.
Okay, last question, more of a personal one, very quickly. We've got some potential exceptional world leaders in the room. Sport is a hotbed of leadership. I'm going to ask you, I haven't prepared you for this, so I don't know what's going to come now, but who are the great leaders you've seen and followed on the pitch, and what particular quality would you suggest to this group of amazing young people? And this I'm going to ask all of you. So you guys have got time, you don't. I can ramble on for a bit.
Yeah,
Shall I ramble on a bit?
It's not difficult because I don't see it as within the sport. I see it as within the human being. There are certain people who have a natural leadership within them. And I think the most important thing is to always remind yourself that it's about serving. It's about giving and supporting the others. That will make you even a stronger leader. And that's how I've seen most of the so-called leaders in football behave. And that was the example I took. Just want to catch the opportunity here because I'm going to play a big match next week against Manchester United. And I'm also an ally of climate justice campaign of Mr. Kofi Annan. So here I just posed a question. That would be fantastic to make some publicity on that game, having the permission to wear the T-shirt in order to create more awareness for the climate change.
That's what sport does.
That's a done deal?
So, done. We have an action. We have an action. William, very quickly, because I've been told we've got to wrap up. So just quickly, that one bit of leadership that you'd give to these guys out here. And
well, I think I would not take someone out of our sport because there are so many examples, but there are some outstanding personalities in this world that also through sport, convey leadership. I mean, we're talking about World Cup 2010. We talked about Invictus.
Yeah.
Nelson Mandela, I think, comes to mind immediately through the Rugby World Cup, through the Football World Cup 2010. I think these are personalities that transcend their own activity in politics, in the arts, in sports. These are part of human heritage.
Okay. Tanni?
One of the most inspirational people I've ever met is someone that you will never have heard of. It was my very first coach. It was a guy called Roy Anthony, and he was a volunteer. And he coached 30 teenage girls, which if you can do that, you can do anything with all the hormones and stopping us. And he came training with us 4 or 5 times a week, rain, shine. He came training with me on Christmas Day. And he was the most amazing guy because he was working on the ground. He worked with a lot of young girls who came from very difficult backgrounds. And he gave them the chance to play, because I didn't win a race in the first 8 years that I competed. And he kept telling me, keep going because you never know. And he made a massive difference in my life. And actually where he made a huge difference was when he didn't think he could coach me anymore. He found another coach to pass me on to. And that's the sort of, we need more people like that who can make a change.
You've got about 10 seconds, I've just been told we've got.
Well, there's too many people. I mean, all the footballers I've worked with who've gone to orphanages and created football development programs around the world, they do it in a selfless way. And David Beckham was a great example in South Africa last year. Unbelievably giving and unbelievably warm in how he went about his job. So there's too many to name.
Excellent. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Clarence, William, Tanni, and Andy.